¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome to the Tuesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Tuesday morning. How's it going, everybody? Howdy. Let me just make sure we got everything going here. It is Tuesday, one step closer to the weekend. Good morning, mister. How's it going? Howdy. Is this okay for everybody? Does that look okay? Can everybody hear me okay? We're good? Good morning. Howdy. Fu Manchu, how's it going? Hey, Heat, how's it going? Okay, sounds good. All right. All good. Okie dokie. Excellent. We do have a few headlines to go through. How's it going, Heat? I see you. By the way, I just noticed that there's a full episode of Our Planet available, what seems to be like for free, in the Netflix app. Not in the Netflix app, in the YouTube Netflix channel. All right, folks, we've got several headlines to go through, so let's see if we can get through some of them. Wait, how come it's not showing me? Where is it? Display? Is that it? No. We are still waking up. What? Did you have your coffee yet? Mayhem Hippie, how's it going? Howdy, howdy. I don't know, ask chat. Chat, have y'all had your coffee yet? Or favorite beverage? Tea? Don't forget to get out with Planned Parenthood this coming Saturday to show your support. Yes, I suspect that there will be several protests. Or rallies. I don't think there are any here. Yeah, I don't know if there's any here. El Darnock, hours ago, need more probably? What? Nationwide with Planned Parenthood this Saturday. Check your local areas then. Oh, coffee. Coffee, yes. More coffee. That's probably a good idea. How's it going, El Darnock? All right, we've got. Let's kick things off with this one here. Republicans aghast at Purdue's false election claims in Georgia governor race. I mean, like it's so it's so hilarious how like they're quote aghast at the remarks that continue to be perpetuated time and time again, and yet nothing gets done. Pretty good. The workday is almost over. Nice. Mine's just about to start in a few hours. Send that to me via Whispers, Mayhem Hippie. It's a refrain that former Senator David Perdue has made a centerpiece of his campaign for governor in Georgia. The election in 2020 was rigged and stolen, Perdue asserted at a recent debate, despite evidence to the contrary. Purdue's former Senate GOP colleagues, however, are less than impressed, but still will not do anything about it. I also put it in the Discord. Nice. Folks, if you have a second, please check this out. I'll post it again towards the end of the stream or towards the middle. But please, if you guys have a few moments. Please feel free to check that out. Join if you can. Spread the word far and wide as well. Purdue's former Senate GOP colleagues, however, are less than impressed, but still won't do anything about it. It's absurd, said Senator Mitt Romney of Utah when asked about the remarks of Purdue's former colleague. I think the effort to try and overturn an election when there is, at this stage, no evidence of widespread fraud is detrimental to democracy and insulting to the American public. Yes, that is true, but what exactly are you doing about it? That's the problem. Like, These folks say that, oh, it's so terrible and there's no actual evidence of anything and all this other stuff, and yet will not give a single bit of pushback whatsoever. They just kind of distance themselves and then say like, oh, I don't. They do the Trump excuse. I don't know about that. I don't know him. He's just a fringe element of it. No. Quote, hell yes, one of Perdue's closest Senate friends told CNN when asked if he was surprised by his ex-colleague's campaign transformation. Really? I don't know whether he believes it or not, I really don't. But I'm sure it's a political strategy. Yeah. Indeed, in his 6 years in the Senate before losing his re-election bid last year, Perdue was a mainstream Senate Republican member, a business-minded conservative who usually voted with his party. Except that's what his party is now, so he's just doing what conservatives do. But Perdue announced his bid in December, challenging Georgia GOP Governor Brian Kemp, blaming Kemp for his and then Senator Kelly Loeffler's losses, which cost Republicans the Senate, by arguing that the governor did not do enough to overturn the results. Yes, the reason why these folks lost is because not because they continuously threaten democracy, completely thrown norms out the window, have shown absolutely no regard for the democratic system, and then surprise Pikachu face, they get kicked out, and then the excuse becomes, well, they didn't do anything. They didn't try hard enough to rig the election despite crying about a rigged election. Yeah, that's a good meme. By arguing that the governor did not do enough to overturn the results. Yes, the reason why we lost is because we didn't do enough to overturn the results of an election. Also, the election was rigged. Former President Trump, who has relentlessly attacked Kemp for his loss in Georgia, endorsed Perdue, falsely asserting that Kemp allowed massive election fraud to take place. Source for that claim? My assumption is that when he was persuaded to run, that was part of the conversation. South Dakota Senator John Thune, the number 2 Senate Republican, said when asked about Perdue's claims, but it doesn't sound like it's working well, at least right now. We shall see. Perdue's candidacy underscores the dilemma facing Republicans as they try to position themselves for the fall elections. Many candidates like Perdue are eager for the Trump endorsement, willing to repeat his false claims and about 2020 in order to get the backing of his fervent supporters. Yeah, does anybody see the problem with this? The 5 stages of grief, democracy? That's hilarious. Does anybody see the problem with this here? So we're all supposed to fall back in line with this one dude who made just ludicrous claims about an election that was not rigged. There's no evidence to suggest that there is widespread voter fraud, election fraud, or anything of the sort that would undermine the results of the election. And yet we have a party, the Republican Party, bending the knee in an effort to kowtow to this clown. More importantly, to gain access to his supporters, which are extremists. Yeah, there's nothing that could possibly go wrong with that. Nothing wrong could possibly come from that. Can't we just forget that happened and move on? I wish. I wish that in 2022, we didn't have to talk about a movement to subvert what tiny fragments of democracy we have, but it keeps happening. It keeps happening. Yet others say harping on the past is a recipe to trip up their chances at a time when the political environment is rich for the GOP. I don't know. I think that is the GOP. I think it's better to ask, do you think that voters want to look to the future or look to the past? I don't know. Are you asking conservatives? Because they're about to throw this back to the dark ages. Said in an interview, the answer to that is self-evident. They want solutions now. I do know him well, said West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito when asked about Purdue's claim. I obviously don't agree with that. So if you've got senators who continuously disagree on the face of it, then why is this guy still here? Buff Dragon, it's a failed single-term president too, true. Yet they are running once again on the, oh, look how terrible the GOP ticket is again. Are you talking about the Democratic Party? Yes. Unfortunately, that seems to be the game plan, which, in my opinion, is not a good strategy. A winning strategy involves, delivering on campaign, running on something and then delivering on something, or at least attempting to. That would be a winning strategy. Still burning for Bernie, but realistically, the only way the Dems can win over millennials and Gen Z and Gen X voters in a new age JFK. I think that they need to coalesce and organize behind a good, strong, progressive candidate, like a younger Bernie Sanders. That would be a good strategy. And then just unite behind that candidate. Yeah, Dems waited for abortion rights shit hit the fan in order to win people because they have actual no policy platform. They're going to organize behind Kamala and call her progressive. I guarantee it. Listen, that is the if that's the plan. If that's the plan. Oh man, it's gonna be worse. It's gonna be worse than 2016. We have no one for 2024. Maybe Ro Khanna. I don't know. What about Nina Turner? I don't know. They seem to steam. Nina Turner, the moment she came on board, they immediately all backed the more, I guess, the other wing of the Democratic Party, the kind of I don't know, for a lack of a better label, the more establishment corpo kind of Dems immediately rallied behind the other other candidate. No, both candidates were women of color, wasn't it? Chantel Brown. Was it Chantel Brown? Or what was her name again? I forgot. They rallied behind her. Because she was more willing to play ball with the kind of more corporate kind of, I don't know, the status quo kind of candidate, the more milquetoast status quo candidate. That's probably a better way of describing it. Watch Hillary throws her hat into the ring just for shits and giggles. If that happens, I'm flipping the proverbial table. All right. Maybe Ro Khanna. I don't know. Ro Khanna would be ideal policy wise. But I don't know, like, if he has a national, like, um, recognition to throw his hat in the ring for general. Maybe he should. Primary. Maybe he should fight for in the primary so that people get, like, exposed more. Yeah, if Hillary throws her hat in the ring, I'm flipping the proverbial table. Yeah, a young progressive like Bernie, like a young Bernie. It doesn't matter. Just, I mean, like, policy wise is what I'm talking about. Policy wise, I would prefer somebody like that. They could get away with another Obama as much as I'd hate to see another corporate Dem. Yeah, but the only way they got away with it is because Obama ran on, like, a more progressive kind of rhetoric, like, on the surface, right? On the surface, it was very progressive, but then in practice, it didn't really turn out that way, right? Of course, if you run on some type of progressive platform that is popular, people will vote for it, I think. I think Cinema wants to run. That would be a mistake. We're losing the Senate because of Georgia. I don't even want to think of 2024. Well, I mean, I'm going to be honest. It's not going to look good. Nina Turner's policies are the antithesis of corporate Dem strategy. Not surprising, they turned against her in full force. Yeah, it was very heavy-handed. Very heavy-handed, that's for sure. Sadly, I think the Dems pushed Biden to try and win those swing Republican voters, and it backfired. To try and win those swing Republican voters, and it backfired. Yeah, like, that strategy was never meant. That strategy is not a winning strategy. You're not going to get Republican voters. You're not going to get Republican voters. Not anymore. I'm sorry, but no one has actually pushed Biden to do shit so far. Well, I mean, to be fair, there have been some things, like, I mean, unfortunately, I can count them on one hand that he's done. But I don't expect him to do much of anything here. They always care more about moving to the right to swing GOP voters rather than running on good policy. Yeah, I mean, like, that's such a losing strategy. You need to give people something to vote for, right? The reason why he stopped contracts with private prisons and the federal government, so small W. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I can count on one hand, like, the things that he's done that have been, like, okay, but the reality is, like, not much farther than that. 2% incrementalism isn't enough. W, the world is burning. That's true. Maybe start selling torches, pitchforks outside of politicians' homes. This is theoretical, of course. Biden only controls the federal contracts. Right. Anyways, TLDR is you need to give people something to vote for, and, like, you could tell that if you run on a, robust progressive platform, you are going to you're going to get a good amount of support. I mean, that's how Obama won, pretty overwhelming too, on a good, robust, progressive platform that even included healthcare. I mean, that was unheard of. A candidate supposedly talking about like massive healthcare reform, potentially even a universal health care system, and won overwhelmingly. But then, of course, that never that never materialized in any capacity. Oh, you got your hey anarchist. You got your cast off your arm. How'd you hurt it in the first place? First of all, howdy. Folks, if you have 5 seconds, please. Take 5 seconds. Twitch.tv/anarchist laboratory. Yeah, I've got my my splint, not sling. Oh yeah, I took my sling off too. I've got my splint and my sling off my arm. Uh, it's still not 100%. They told me that I'm supposed to hang tight, don't do anything for a good almost a month, really. And the way I heard it is moving out of Florida. I don't know why. Save. Okay. Anyways, so I was moving from Florida, and I was at the top of the U-Haul truck, and I fell straight back, and broke this this piece right here. Interesting how he said that he won't tell the Justice Department what to expect when it's convenient. Yep. Don't we bomb and terrorize countries for enacting religious laws and take over their resources? At what point, as citizens, do we draw the line and truly fight back? I think, like, usually questions like that are, like, last resort kind of deal. Well, Rip, hope you... Yeah, don't lift anything with that arm for a little while. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm not doing any kind of heavy lifting or any heavy work other than my normal day-to-day. It still hurts to move and stretch certain things, and stretch certain ways, but it is what it is. I just don't understand why we're tolerating this attack on democracy. We shouldn't tolerate it. That's why there's a bunch of organizations and protests that are going to happen. Yes, and they should continue. That's why there's organizations like the one that you provided. Stony Progressive coming in hot with a prime sub. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Jeez, wait. Hold on. Do I not have alerts? What's going on over here? How come none of that's showing? Well. Yes, when it's Christianity, is A-okay. What? Yeah, all of this is just not working properly. Okay. I refuse to let my kids grow up in a country run by fascists and Christian terrorists. Will they see a civil war? Will I see civil war in my lifetime? Are we supposed to be this great nation? And we are supposed to be this great nation, and it's just not anymore. I don't know. I don't agree. With like, it just seems like weird to have this fascination with being like the greatest nation. Every time a country like makes statements like that, it's always the opposite, you know? I mean, who's tolerating any of this? I certainly don't, and I call it out when I see it IRL. True. The summer's going to be wild, so buckle up. We had the murder of Amir Locke a couple months ago, the continued abuse and dislocation of natives, the sustained attack on queer rights, and now the attack on abortion rights. Yeah, I mean, there have been talks. I mean, I personally don't want, um, you know, this to escalate into like that kind of territory, which is why I avoid, um, which is why I avoid rhetoric or talk about, civil war and stuff like that. It's not a good position to be in. It's not a good position. And the reason why I say that is, who do you think wants civil? Who do you think wants civil war? The GOP is doing everything they can to take rights away from women, POC, native rights, LGBTQIA rights. At first, they came for my neighbor, and I was silent, kind of thing. It's terrifying. Yeah, no, I agree. You should not be silent. Absolutely, you should not be silent. I don't think civil war will happen, but it's going to be a summer similar to the George Floyd summer. As a native, this nation has never been great. It was built on stolen land and bodies. Yep. I'm making an exit plan for my kids' sake. That's a good thing to have in the back of your head. Eat. That's a good idea to have. Well, I don't know. I see MTG and I think Magic the Gathering. I went and bought a gun the other day. We already have our refugee status in Canada. My fiance and I are both marked as domestic terrorists due to our travel with the Rainbow family. What? What does that mean? Rainbow Family is marked as a terrorist organization with the FBI and have their own task force? Yeah, but what is that? I've never heard of them. Oh, it's literally just a bunch of hippies in the woods. Okay. Okay, that's cool. Although, why why a domestic terrorist organization? Goopio has it gone. Howdy, howdy. That's interesting. That's not true. Do you have any proof for that claim? They gather around the world in national forests. They tend to be anti-government, and there's a very small sect that has been armed against the government, but we do not know anything of it. I see. Everything is a hot topic. It's also a store. It honestly makes you sound crazy. No, this is what I feel like is about to be a dog whistle. So I'm asking them to elaborate. That's why. Got my dog whistle senses, my spidey senses. My spidey senses are tingling. Can you elaborate on what that means? This store sucks ass. As someone that was a goth in high school, Hot Topic is hot garbage. I mean, I've had my share of times going to Hot Topic. Everything I'm reading about them on Wikipedia seems like the worst thing about them is that they gather in large groups in US government land and spread diseases amongst the members. Like, oh my goodness. What? That's a weird. Spencer's is better. That's true. It's like it is like Hot Topic but better. Either way, it doesn't seem like it necessitates being put on a terrorist list. They had some good band shirts. Yeah, I mean Spencer's is still around, right? Spencer's is definitely still around. They've got good stuff. It's like Hot Topic, but like better. Alright, folks, give me 1 second. They seem pretty harmless from what I mean. From what I read, I mean, I don't see anything warranting being on a domestic terror list. Right. Probably on it for being subversive. Yeah, anything that's not oop. Hey, come back here. Anything that's not government appropriate. It's a particular sect that it's labeled. I had a legit AK in my face for camping without a permit. I live in that mark with that mark on my record. They have been on the FBI watch list since the 70s because they were communists. Gotcha. Yeah, something's acting really weird with stream elements. Ah. I have photos and witnesses of have witnessed some really awful things. Just look up the Rainbow Task Force. Generally, any group or org with any ties to the Communist Party or anything that presents itself as anti-establishment gets put on the watch list. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense. Well, for some reason... well... Canada was all about letting us in when we applied last year. Could not get a gun in New York, but thanks to Vermont being lax on its gun laws, I can. Same for my fiance. Yeah, Vermont has very lax gun laws, that's for sure. Oof. I don't know if it's the pollen that's outside or what is it. I don't know. But it's certainly messing with me today, that's for sure. All right. So Stream Elements is having a bit of an issue, but you know what? For the record, we both got marked for domestic terrorism in Colorado ages ago. We both got tickets for camping without a permit. Mind you, national parks are paid for and funded by the American people. That's our land, not the government's. Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting how that works, yeah? National parks are native land that got stolen. That's also true, yes. They just hand them out? What, like tickets? Yeah. National parks are owned by who? Technically, they are everybody's. In terms of how it works nowadays. A record of 2,873 tickets were handed out at that gathering. AK-47 pulled on citizens and food supply chains were blocked by people on the inside. Where did you see that info from? I mean, the whole point of a national park is that everybody can visit them. It's like it's in the word national park. Right? I don't understand what the point of that comment was. All right, folks, we got to put this train back on the tracks. I have no idea what's going on with the Stream Elements. So, it is what it is. I don't like violence. I'm about peace. I don't like violence either. I'm not going to lie. All right, let's put this train back on the tracks. National parks are owned by the U.S. as public property, but without getting too far into the weeds, park rangers and the Department of Natural Resources are the green cops of national parks. Yep. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's owned by the U.S. as public property. With your permission, I would love to post some resources and photos to the Discord. Yeah, you could post that on the general. I think we need to make... I've been meaning to make a resources channel, but yeah, you can post it on the general. All right. She outlines the history of land management and allotment to the state organizations tasked with handling it. Yes, that's the National Park Service. Yes. It's an interesting topic now. To avoid the national gathering every year, we stick to regional events. It's like feeding our family in the woods and like being able to disappear for weeks and just want to connect with nature. Going home, what it's called, nice. Pretty much federally owned, right? Because it's for everybody. Yes. Disappearing into nature for a week sounds good. All right, folks, we've got to put this train back on the tracks here. So the TLDR of this article is basically Republicans have no backbone, nothing. Immediately after jumping into the race, Purdue filed a lawsuit to shine a spotlight on Trump's false claims, even though there were 3 separate court counts of the results in Georgia, no evidence that fraud cost Trump or Perdue their elections. Perdue's first and latest television ads promote the lie that the elections were stolen. Trump has held rallies for Perdue in Georgia, hosted a fundraiser for him at his Mar-a-Lago resort, and aired ads bashing Kemp, saying that he can't beat Democratic candidate Stacey Abrams. Trump called into a tele-rally with Perdue last week as early voting began for the May 24th primary. Kemp's campaign has spent over $5.3 million on ads compared to $1.3 million for Perdue, but the other Trump-aligned groups like Take Back Georgia, sheesh, and MAGA again are trying to fill the gap. Planning events takes months. It's all done by council. We work with local 6UP to DEC to make sure that the sites we choose can support a large number of people. There are tons of classes offered by peers on survival and naturalizing. Happens after each event, which takes about 2 weeks. I'll post some resources and additional information for anyone interested in exploring more on this topic. Interesting. Perdue has been hoping that President Trump will propel him to victory, but if he falls short, it would be a major blow to the former president in his campaign to boot out Republicans who don't align themselves with his 2020 election lies, aka and his status as a kingmaker. After the primaries last Tuesday, Trump boasted that his candidates went 22-0, but even as Trump has appeared to recognize that Perdue could threaten that streak. Remember, my record is unblemished. I don't know about that necessarily, but okay. The real story should be on endorsements, not the David Perdue one. And by the way, no race is over. In interviews with more than a dozen Republicans, Senate Republicans, about the Georgia race, most said that their party needs to stop talking about 2020 if they want to win back Congress in 2022 and rack up wins on the state level as well. Now, this is the Republican Party now. This is the Republican Party now. It's too late. CNN, 6 years strong, still going after Trump. Yeah. Because he's still around. He still makes himself around, unfortunately. Well, I like David. But, if Kemp wins, it means that people looked beyond 2020, said Senator Lindsey Graham, a South Carolina Republican and personal lapdog of Trump. That's the only conclusion you can come to. That's a bit of a leap in logic, right? And there's only two outcomes here. Senator Joni Ernst, a Republican of Iowa, called Perdue a smart man, and people respect him, sure. But when asked if Republicans should be talking about 2020 in the election year, Ernst pushed back and said it just looks like we're a party that looks to the past rather than the future. I mean, this is the same party that, again, is trying to take us back into the freaking dark ages. Yeah, that's literally the whole shtick. Yeah, you've got the Republican Party aiming to go backwards. Democrats are literally Republicans who believe in gay marriage. No, I don't think it's like that. I don't think it's like that either. Perdue and I would probably agree to disagree on that particular issue. What? Where's your backbone? Own it. And it's not the first time I've had to agree to disagree with my friends and colleagues. A South Dakota said Senator Mike Rounds, a South Dakota Republican, we found no evidence that says that the election would have been overturned by what we would have found in terms of problems within the election cycle itself. Others made clear that Republicans should not keep on harping on 2020. I think we have to look ahead, said Thom Tillis, A North Carolina Republican, the most important election is the next election, in my opinion. Oh, look, it's the same line. I'm only focused on November. The only election I'm worried about is the 2022 election, said Chuck Grassley when asked about Purdue's comments. Then I worry about the 2024 election. After that, I'm looking towards the future. Florida Republican Marco Rubio, who like Grassley is up for re-election in 2022, said he hasn't paid a lot of attention to Georgia's governor race, so that we have got our hands full here in the Senate. Pressed if he would be talking about 2020 on the campaign trail, Rubio said, "I'll be talking about the stuff I've worked on." Okay, it's not really an answer. Well, got the majority of Democrats in current government wannabes. I would say there may be a very low percent that would actually represent true Democrat ideology. And what is that? Enlighten us. You seem to know what's going on. What is true Democrat ideology? Texas Senator John Cornyn, a member of GOP leadership, said he wasn't going to get involved in the governor's race. Wait, you're part of GOP leadership, you absolute spineless coward. But he added, "I will tell you, I don't think the governor. I think Joe Biden won the Electoral College and was correctly confirmed as president. He also won the popular vote, buddy." Yellow King, how's it going? When asked if he's concerned about members of his party still espousing 2020 election lies, Romney deadpanned, I stopped being concerned about members of my party? What? Okay. Do you see the Democrats in the U.S. Congress or House of Representatives actually pushing for social programs, labor unions, consumer protection, workplace safety regulations, just to name a few things? No, actually. I've only seen a small select group of them in the DNC actually push for it. I think 99% of Democrats are literally Republicans with less cruelty. They do the same thing. They trade in the same stocks and they protect the same industries. I mean, like the corporate side of it, yeah, they're basically the same, yes. Come back. Eric Tanblant is supporting Kemp even though he helped raise money for Purdue's last Senate campaign and served as chief of staff to former Georgia Republican Governor Sonny Perdue, the former senator's cousin. It is a very good likelihood that Kemp will win the primary on May 24th with a majority of the votes enough to avoid a runoff. Yeah, hopefully this guy gets nowhere near it. So, I think you're conflating, like, the labels of Democrat ideology with Democrat, like, I don't know. That seems to me like just basic left kind of a left-leaning policies, right? Political descriptions is what you're doing. The Democratic Party hasn't really pushed for any of those things. So what does that tell you about the Democratic Party, right? Correct. The left, being a leftist or left-leaning or lefty does not equal Democratic Party, which is my entire point. To then drive the question, to then ask the question, if they're not pushing for any of these things, then maybe they're not really that much of a left-leaning party. Maybe this is a spitball in here. Maybe they're not like an actual left party. Benjamin P. Dixon, rating with a party of 16. Welcome, everybody. Howdy, howdy. Hey, Samaline the Kind Dragon. How's it going? Folks, if you guys are just here for the first time, we are A Difficult Truth. We do the news, we do the politics Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Join us for Saturday Catterdays about noon Eastern Time. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to hit that follow button on your way in, and you get 5 free emotes. All right, 5. Look at that. And one of those emotes is Makita the cat. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much to the Benjamin P. Dixon Show for the raid. Please go show some love. Twitch.tv/Benjamin P. Dixon Show. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Wow. Truly awesome. Industrial Arts, thank you for the follow. If you guys have a moment, make sure you go support the Benjamin P. Dixon Show. Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome, everybody. I just remain baffled at why David is doing this. He was a senator with a, quote, great record and represented the state well. And unfortunately, the thing we're going to remember about him now is not what he did in the Senate, but that he took on an incumbent Republican governor. No, is that he continues to espouse nonsense about the election and is complicit in subverting whatever pieces of democratic norms that we have. That's how people should remember him. All right, we need to shift gears. U.S. Congress plans nearly $40 billion more for Ukraine. COVID aid is going to have to wait, folks. U.S. congressional Dems agreed to rush $39.8 billion in additional aid for Ukraine. Two sources familiar with the proposal said on Monday, using fears of a delayed vote that could interrupt the U.S. flows of weapons to the Kyiv government. The House of Representatives could pass that plan, which exceed Biden's request last month for $33 billion. What? As soon as Tuesday, and Senate leaders said they were also prepared to move quickly. Ah, yes, nothing gets Congress moving quicker than Jesus Christ. Nothing gets Congress moving quicker than selling more, than giving weapons contractors more money to manufacture more weapons. The U.S. House of Representatives could pass a plan which exceeds Biden's request for $33 billion, and Senate leaders said they would also be prepared to move quickly. A proposal for additional COVID-related funding, which some Dems had wanted to combine with emergency Ukraine funding, will now be considered separately. In other words, that's not going to happen, folks. Sorry. Biden on April 28th asked Congress for $33 billion to support Ukraine, including more than $20 billion in military assistance. That proposal was a dramatic escalation of U.S. funding for the war with Russia. A new proposal includes an additional $3.4 billion for military aid and $3.4 billion in humanitarian aid. Biden's fellow Dems and Republicans both said they supported more aid for Ukraine and would approve emergency funding quickly, but it was delayed by disputes between the parties over whether additional funding for COVID relief or stiffer immigration control should be included. Jesus. most members of Congress have defense contractor stock, so yeah, they'll give themselves a payout. Yep. This is only counting money from the US. Canada is also all in and on Ukraine. Yep, investing in the war machine and disguising it as typical American politics, and disguising it as atypical American politics, like backing their war pick and disguising it as aid. Yep. A delayed raise concerns across the Capitol. Biden issued a statement calling on lawmakers to pass funding and get it to his desk for him to sign into law in the next few days. We cannot allow our shipments of assistance to stop while we wait further congressional action. Listen, I understand, and I think, you know, it's fine to like give humanitarian aid. Fu Manchu giving out 5 community gifted subs. Thank you so much, Fu Manchu. I appreciate that. Sorry if you don't see any alerts. As you can see, Stream Elements is busted. So I have to keep an eye on that. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you. We live in clown world and all the clown cars are exploding and running over clowns. And running over the clowns, yeah. Nothing is showing up on my end. I have to physically go back into my stream. Thank you so much, Fu Manchu. I appreciate that. Maybe tomorrow we'll have all the, you know, all the stuff working, but... Oh, wait. I refreshed it. There it goes. Hey. There we go. It's not socialism unless you're having technical difficulties. Yeah, this is the, you know, there's a lefty stream when we got all kind of technicality issues going on here. That's okay. We'll power through it, all right? Listen, I'm going to aim to end this socialist video, socialist audio thing, all right? The only thing allowed, we're going to end this lefty arc of having bad audio and bad video, okay? I'm putting a stop to it right now. Okay? You can make stuff look good and sound good. And you don't gotta do much. Just push F5, it handles all those difficulties. F5 is refresh, I believe. Yeah, it's Stream Elements because the bot itself is still not even the bot that it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a custom name, but it doesn't. None of it's working. Look. And for some reason, my entire overlay was off. So none of that was even on. I didn't turn it off. I didn't tell it to do any of that. I like CloudBot. Never used it. Yeah, there's not much commands for Nightbot. Nightbot is just kind of there. Stream Elements is really who's supposed to be handling this. But, you know, I don't know. It is just the way it is. Everyone wave to their NSA agent, true. It's from Streamlabs. Yeah, I don't like Streamlabs in compared to Stream Elements. That's just me, though. It's like the one day it decides to mess up. Anyways, everyone waved hi. I was hoping Stream Elements would respond. Hi, NSA agent. Hello. Hi. I heard some good news about Stream Elements lately. I haven't heard anything. Maybe I'm not in the loop, but Stream Elements is pretty decent. I actually really like Stream Elements. Everything is kind of just in one place. Yeah, Fu Manchu had just dropped a $5, and I couldn't even see it. Yes, reliability and stability for the most part. Yeah, it seems to work. Over 80%, 90% of the time for sure. The overwhelming amount of time, I should say. Stream Elements has been very reliable, stable, easy to use, and I just kind of do everything from one place, so seems to me like it's a good choice for now. All right, folks, we gotta keep going. In a letter to U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the top Republican Kevin McCarthy, and key committee chairs in both House and Senate, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, and the military had enough funds to send weapons for Kiev for just the next 2 weeks. We need your help, they said. There was only $100 million left to draw under the authority that allows the president to authorize a transfer of weapons without congressional approval in response to an emergency. Jesus. Why does the executive have that unilateral problem? That unilateral power, I should say. We expect to exhaust that authority no later than May 19th. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell told reporters that he was pleased that the Ukraine assistance was decoupled from COVID, yet advocated for a clean Ukraine bill repeatedly in speeches in the Senate. Right, because God forbid we attempt to help any folks here. That's what I just heard from others saying the things you are saying right now. Yeah, I agree. I agree. They're Stream Elements are pretty good. Pretty good. Some Dems said that they were disappointed that the COVID aid would be considered separately. Yeah. Sorry, folks. This allergies has been terrible today. Sheesh. It would have been so much better for us to protect the US as well as worked to protect Ukraine. What? As asked if separating Ukraine hurts prospects for COVID aid, said it doesn't help, but in those two together it would have been a positive. Jesus. In a statement, Biden called on Congress to move promptly on COVID funding. Without timely COVID funding, more Americans will die needlessly. We will lose our place in line for America to order new COVID treatments and vaccines for the fall, including next-generation vaccines under development, and be unable to maintain our supply of COVID tests. All right, I'm good. Separately, Biden said on Monday signed legislation that revives the Lend-Lease Act, a World War II era program that helped defeat Hitler's Germany by allowing Washington to lend or lease military equipment to allies more quickly. In this case, it will help those affected by Russia's invasion, such as Poland and other eastern countries, as well as Ukraine. But what is the point of that? There's already NATO. Isn't Poland part of NATO? What exactly is the impetus there? The TLDR of this article, the reason why I want to bring it up is it is just unfathomable how quickly it is unfathomable how quickly yes, Poland is part of NATO. Right, so then what's the point here? They can't touch NATO. But isn't the job of a NATO nation to help supply its allies? Right, but like, we have been supplying them. Ukraine is not part of NATO. So the TLDR of this article is it is actually, I would say, impressive just how quickly Ukraine technically isn't under NATO because of the act of war from Russia. Putin hasn't been a stable or predictable actor so far. Makes sense to shore up defenses in Poland as a just in case. Gotcha. NATO was established to oppose Russia specifically after the fall. In the 90s, NATO is the bad guys. I don't know necessarily. I don't know necessarily. I think that there's a reason why that even was conceived in the first place. And like, I definitely think in this scenario, in this situation, I think that I think Putin made his bed, essentially. I don't know what the purpose of that was. I don't know what led him to make that decision that cascaded all of this. Nor does it make any sense whatsoever. But my entire point of bringing this article up is because it is actually impressive right, if anything, if anything, if your push is to make NATO go away or give NATO less legitimacy, if anything, was to make NATO legitimate is in trying to invade Ukraine. If your job was to decrease increase the legitimacy of NATO and continue to prove like, oh, this is all just saber rattling, this is the West or whatever, probably not a good idea to, make an aggressive move. Such as that, right? Because then it gets turned around and said, see, that's exactly why NATO needs to exist. I don't know. I think Putin just made his own bed. Anyways, the TLDR of what I'm trying to bring up here, the main point of what I'm trying to bring up here is it is actually impressive how fast Congress finds $40 billion that ultimately goes into, arms manufacturing, ultimately goes and feeds weapons, companies. It is unfathomable. It is impressive how fast Congress finds $40 billion at the snap of a finger. And it is also impressive how all of a sudden we are able to rally to pass $40 billion. Easy peasy, no sweat off anybody's back. No long-standing debates about where this money is coming from. No extended questions about, can we afford this? How about what does that mean? Is it going to increase prices here? Like what who's paying for it? We got none of those long debates. About throwing $40 billion in producing or supplying more weapons. But the second you bring up the idea of anything remotely useful, like, I don't know, healthcare, How about reducing student debt, medical debt, making that thing go away? As soon as we start talking or talking about that, all of a sudden, all the pearls in the world get clutched. We start asking about how much it's going to cost. Where's this money going to come from? Who's going to pay for it? It seems like a combination of Congress making money off the act, and Putin being the Red Scare boogeyman and an existential immediate threat to the US that drives swiftness in passing the bills. Yeah, I mean, sure. But I don't see, uh, yeah, I guess it just doesn't make sense. Didn't some Congress state that Elon Musk with his $43 billion could end world hunger? So why didn't the US Congress take take the 40 billion and end world hunger? Elon asked the UN to draft a plan to end world hunger. The UN did that and it said it would cost about 20 billion. And Elon said no. 20 billion per year for 15 years. Yeah, and if you multiply that, I think you would be more than rich enough to do it. Yeah, taxing Elon 20 billion per year seems like nothing. It's super dumb. We could literally mobilize our military to build homes for homeless people, feed starving people, but instead we just saber rattle about Russia. Yeah, exactly. And it's just impressive how quickly funding, makes an appearance when it comes to things like this. But when it comes to when it comes to actually funding things that would help us, all the pearls get clutched. That's why I brought this up. 40 billion of all of a sudden, Congress just gets quick as hell and took care of that. Could have taken care of the US a lot better. I think so. Ask other billionaires too around the world. Yeah, billionaires shouldn't exist. Yeah, not my pearls. Oh, my stars. Yeah, all the pearls get clutched when you start asking for stuff like, I don't know, universal healthcare. All of a sudden, we got to count our pennies. I don't know. It's not in the budget. Our education system in the US is ranked something like 26th or 28th, with somewhere around there. That 40 billion could have done something. Anything. Here's an interesting article. All right, so this article, Ars Technica out of all places. Why are continued use of fossil fuels creating a financial time bomb? We know roughly how much CO2 we can put in the atmosphere before we exceed our climate goals, limiting warming to 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial temperatures. From that, we can figure out how much more fossil fuel we can burn before we emit that much carbon dioxide. But when you compare those numbers with our known fossil fuel reserves, things get jaw-dropping. To reach our climate goals, we'll need to leave a third of the oil, half of natural gas, and nearly all the coal we're aware of sitting in the ground unused. Yet we have and are still building infrastructure that is predicted on burning far more than that. Mines, oil, gas wells, refineries, and the distribution networks that get all those products to market. Power plants, cars, trains, boats, airplanes that use the fuel. If we're to reach our climate goals, some of those things will have to be intentionally shut down and left to sit idle before they can deliver a return on the money they cost to produce. That's just not physical capital that will cause the problems if we decide to get serious about addressing climate change. We have workers who are trained to use all the idle hardware, companies that treat the fuel reserves and hardware as an asset to balance their sheets, and various contracts that dictate that the reserves can be exploited. Collectively, you can think of all these things as assets that if we were to get serious about climate change, would see their value drop to zero. At that point, they'd be termed stranded assets, and their stranding has potential to unleash economic chaos on the world. To explain stranded assets, Armand Rezai of Vienna University of Economics and Business turned to actual strandings. If you have a boat and it runs aground, you can no longer derive any financial benefit from the boat. It remains an asset but is no longer useful. The same thing goes for any goods that it was carrying, as well as the crew that was familiar with its peculiarities. While that sort of one-off disaster can definitely occur with fossil fuel production and use, it doesn't represent the sort of wholesale threat to all fossil fuel production that's an issue in the near future. But there are many ways that assets can become stranded far beyond freak events. Many of them are relevant to fossil fuels. Jyogyada Gupta of IHE Delft noted that assets could be stranded by something as simple as a brand falling out of fashion, leaving its owners with excess production capacity. Technological changes can also make product obsolete, stranding all the infrastructure used to make, sell, and service it. So what it sounds like is that this is a unsustainable, useless product. Our education system is ranked. Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad to say the least. But there's an added risk here. All the people we talked to noted that all sorts of strandings are a normal part of capitalism. And they definitely apply to fossil fuels, as people have started to seek out cleaner alternatives and renewable technologies undercut them in price. But there's an added risk here. Policy interventions by governments. Already, various governments have put a price on carbon emissions, launched carbon trading systems, and taken other actions to either discourage the use of fossil fuels or encourage the use of cleaner alternatives. Of course, many of them have done it at the same time that they pursued other policies that promote fossil fuel use. It's tempting to consider these stranding mechanisms in terms of trying to identify which of them will be decisive, but all of them can and in fact are acting in parallel. If we want to reach our climate goals, they'll have to act more quickly than they've been. But I think that this is making an argument. That don't worry. Eventually, the market is going to adjust. Just one tiny problem with that. By the time the market attempts to adjust, It'll be too late. Is the issue here? It's not coming fast, but it's been happening. Yeah, the problem is the free market, the market, is not equipped to deal with the timeline that we're dealing with. That's the issue. Several things could potentially drive an acceleration. The growing frequency of climate-related disasters could gradually focus the public and governments on limiting climate change. Yes, that's what should happen. Technology's march could also change energy markets. Oxford's Rick Van Plague mentioned a possibility of a breakthrough in battery technology which would enable a move away from oil and transportation and the use of solar and wind for more of our electricity needs. Well, I disagree. The solar and wind technologies by themselves so far have been more than capable. And the idea that we're going to have to sit here and wait for some future possible, maybe, hopefully, sort of, kind of, maybe, technology is just nonsense. You've got very limited amount of time to begin to get ourselves out of this and mitigate this. Timeline of what? Timeline of climate change, my friend. We've got not a lot of time to deploy what we have to mitigate and adapt. We don't have that time. California is like 80% renewable energy at this point. That's awesome. The bigger question is whether these pressures build slowly or suddenly. If assets lose their value slowly without major strandings, everyone can adjust. Yeah, but the problem is not doing this. You're just forcing different problems that are unnecessary and that could potentially be worse and more expensive. Investors can shift to other markets. Yeah, but you're depending on the investors. They're not looking out to see what climate change is or isn't doing. They're out there to see which makes the bucks. Companies can change their focus. Can and will are two different things. You're relying strictly on companies to do the right thing, which time and time again has shown that that's not really the case. Infrastructure can be allowed to deprecate until much of its value is gone. Okay, that's not an acceptable option either. There would be undoubtedly some economic pain, especially if you're in the fossil fuel business, but there won't be wholesale economic disruption. Yeah, like, you know what else causes massive economic pain? Whole entire neighborhoods being wiped out because of a wildfire. Relying on a profit motive to solve climate change is an effort in futility. I agree. Arizona should be leading the world in solar. Louisiana and Gulf states should be leading with hydroelectric. The Midwest should have tons of wind power. And as a backup, we should have nuclear. If the US swaps only renewables, the rest of the world will soon after. Well, I think it does, yeah, like, in parallel to whatever, the world is doing. That's not an excuse, right? Let's say the entire United States won 80% alternative energies. What about the other top 4 countries that are causing climate change? I mean, so that's not an excuse. That's a childish way of looking at the world. Companies are not people. They don't care about anything except profit. True. But the US won't because of the petrodollar. Yep. That's a good point. That's not what I'm saying. Then why bring it up? Like, what are we supposed to do? All we can do is do our part. And supposedly, America is supposed to be like some type of leader or whatever. I don't get what the point of that was. Every bit of action we take that reduce climate change effects literally saves lives. So yes, even if the other countries don't follow, but we should still do it. Absolutely. Unfortunately, our climate goals and our continuing emissions are making a probability of this sort of soft landing increasingly remote. We dragged our feet and we kind of have to double down. If we have to have quicker adjustments, that creates the possibility of more disruptive adjustments, less smooth adjustments. Yeah, it doesn't matter, right? At this point, it doesn't matter because the timeline is very, very short. It's going to be a rough adjustment if every single year you've got wildfires destroying hundreds of thousands of acres. It's going to be a tougher adjustment having massive hurricanes wipe out like cities. This isn't like a choice, really. It's not much of a choice. If we have to quicker adjustments, that creates the possibility of more disruptive adjustments, less smooth adjustments. What is this word salad? My conversation with him and Van der Ploeg was filled with the talk of potential for a Minsky movement, in which the value of some assets dropped dramatically. For the climate, this could come in response to technology changes or government policy changes. This sort of sudden collapse will have sweeping effects. People who have livelihoods based on fossil fuel extraction will see their jobs vanish. Yes, but that's not to say that there can't be a transformative move from fossil fuel jobs to the building and maintaining and upkeep and all this setup for the new renewable infrastructure. Some of which, especially in the offshore like wind farms and stuff like that, actually use like very similar platforms and rigs. That are similar to what the oil rigs are on. So yes, a lot of those jobs can be moved over, especially those kind of setting up and building the infrastructure. If we had 2 degrees Celsius instead of 2.5, that means less wildfires and flooding. Every bit of action translates to saving lives. Yep. It's time the world has a restart. Let the natural disasters wipe it out. No. No, I actually value life. I actually want people to have less suffering. So I'm good on that, especially if we had the means to mitigate and adapt right now. That's just a no. This sort of collapse will have sweeping effects. People who have livelihoods based on fossil fuel extraction will see their jobs vanish. Government that relies on taxes and fees from fossil fuel extraction, oh no. And use may struggle to replace their lost revenue. Companies throughout the economy will take a huge hit. That seems very vague. Obviously, this will include lost revenue for fossil fuel companies. Oh no. It could also mean that things they treat as assets from equipment extraction licenses will have to be written off as stranded. Nothing we can do about it. Imagine having this mentality. It's like, look, man. Think of the candle makers, all right? Think of all the wax producers, and then the people who put that together, and then the artists who make the candles into a neat little design. Like, look at all these jobs that are going to disappear. I mean, can you imagine, like, instead of the automobile, all the horse and carriage, like, companies will have to just, like, adjust. Some jobs will be just vanished because there's absolutely no imagination put forth here. The equipment of the candle makers will suffer similar problems, as will companies that transport wax and run waxing, factories. We just can't do it. Companies that make transportation hardware like automobiles and trains will struggle to adjust. Really? It seems like a lot of these auto companies have been more than capable of creating their own lines of electric vehicles. Companies that make transportation hardware like automobiles and trains will struggle to adjust. Wait, trains? Really? Trains? Really? All the utilities that have invested in building and maintaining fossil fuel powered generating facilities will see them retired long before their useful life is over. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the alternative is umpteen times worse. The concrete, which can be replaced, steel and chemical industries that rely on fossil fuels will face consequences. Like what? There are other alternatives of, first of all, making more sustainable materials like hempcrete. And there are renewable energy sources that will be able to continue the manufacturing of steel. Yes, we have those capabilities right now. It's huge because we're not just talking about oil and gas. We're talking about the aircraft industry. Yeah. What of it? We're talking about the car industry. Yes. We're talking about scooters. What? Aren't scooters mostly electric? There's like very, very, very small that are actually gas engines. Ships and all those industries. Ships and the actual shipping industry and the transportation industry is not as much. We're talking about every household that has a gas connection, okay, electric. We're talking about pipelines that connect with gas. It's massive, yes. You know what else is massive? The cost not only of human life, but health problems, economic damages that happen when, your industry gets wiped out by one hurricane, one wildfire away. All of these stranded assets may ultimately be written off as losses, leading to such change in profitability throughout the economy. This will obviously affect their financials, but it will affect things like retirement funds, college endowments, and other entities that either directly or indirectly have invested in these companies. The residential housing crisis of 2008 was not the whole market, it was rather a very isolated and smaller portion of the financial market. Because of the interconnectedness of the banking system, to melt down on a bigger scale, while he and Van der Plug are skeptical that fossil fuels will create problems on a similar scale, the risks aren't zero. What? What is this fear-mongering? So how can we address climate while keeping stranded assets from crashing the economy? The financial risks associated with fossil fuels are so widely distributed in our economy that minimizing those risks would require a number of different approaches. One is simply for governments to agree to pay companies for assets that get stranded, referring to coal plants. Reze noted that in Germany, the owners of those companies were actually bribed into giving up their rights to pollute or their squatter rights to pollute. It's not an acquired right, they just have been doing it in the past. Van der Ploeg bluntly suggested that this sort of thing was going to be widespread. The Pigovian carbon price may be interesting, but you really have to pay those bastards off? No. They should be paying us. The benefits from these lower damages from global warming is more than enough to pay for litigation, to pay them off, and to bribe them off. Nah, F these people, honestly. Reze indicated that governments were probably best positioned to run sorts of programs that needed to help the human capital experienced workers in industries that would be going away to retain new careers. Or just move them to build the future? I don't know. This seems like a massive problem that we should have been working on decades ago. Yeah, no kidding. but the fossil fuel industry is it's far too large to eliminate through compensation. So okay, you know what? If it's too big and it's causing such a problem, and nationalize it. The fossil fuel industry is too large to eliminate through compensation, and there are many governments without the financial means that would allow them to do so. This sort of government action isn't going to be sufficient to handle all our problems, but there are other things government can do that largely involve signaling to the market that climate policies are going to be increasingly strict. Yeah, no, F that. Just straight up hammer down on that one. If we're talking about heating and AC that you can do 100% electrical regardless of where you live, there's always one option for renewable energy. I think for the most part, that should be true. Joltium, new here, who wrote this? I have no idea. I think I share you being puzzled as to why we'd want to compensate polluters at this point in history. I agree. It just doesn't make any sense. They should be compensating us. And this sort of government action isn't going to be sufficient to handle all the problems, but there are other things that governments can do, largely involve signaling to the market that climate policies are going to be increasingly strict. Those sort of signals can range from simply announcing more aggressive climate policies to pushing the funding for development and deploying of alternatives. Yes, there's an element of that happening at present, but it has not been consistent or aggressive in most countries. True. A comprehensive government commitment would be needed to send the right signals. Here's the right signals. If you are incapable of, mobilizing and switching or beginning to show good, legitimate plans to get us off of fossil fuels as a company, then you should be nationalized. Yes. It's not just the fossil fuels, but the petrochemical industry as well that needs to restructure. Yep, that would start ramping up production so that they can be reimbursed, no bailout. They can be reimbursed more, no bailout. Yeah, no, I don't want to bail these people out. Just cash in on your billions. If the government did that, then I think investors in the financial industry would soon realize it's the end of the game. It will soon be the end of the music. Yeah, it's all the game to them. That's hilarious. Ha ha ha. Complicating all this is the risk that fossil fuel companies can sue governments for damages if there are limits imposed on the use of said fuels. In many parts of the world, the state retains the ownership of the oil and gas underground, and the company gets the rights to take it out. The fact that a company may not be allowed to extract fuel in the future may lead it to demand compensation from the state. Yeah, no, just nationalize them. A story nears 10 years old, but I think it's really relevant today how utterly useless government in America is in doing the right thing, and really it's probably diet that is the biggest blocker for single-payer system in American health. No, I don't think so. I think that the single blocker for a single payer system is the private industry, the insurances. That's literally it. Yeah, this is a New York Post article. This is a good meme. From 10 years ago. Guzzlers prevailed as New York's highest court refused to reinstate New York City's ban on the sale of Big Soda. Big Soda is ruling that the city's health department overstepped its bounds and approved the 16-ounce cap on sugary beverages. Good meme. 2014, folks. Oh yeah, that's right. We signed a bunch of investor right investors write contract this past decade under the guise of so-called free trade agreements at the small detriment, the small price of our ability to deal with climate change. The biggest the biggest blocker of single-payer healthcare is the Dems' incompetence. I mean, that's certainly a piece of the puzzle, right? That certainly is a piece of the puzzle, but, you know, who funds them? Well, it's the private insurance companies. The fact that a company may not be allowed to extract fuel in the future may lead it to demand compensation from the state. Nah, I think it should be the other way around. This situation creates a significant asymmetry. Business laws enforced enforced in international and national courts. Nobody would undertake business risk if they were not sure that their business was protected by the law. But public international law agreements between states such as the Kyoto Protocol or Paris Agreement are different. There's no way to enforce the US to ratify Kyoto or to implement Paris. You know, you can't force a sovereign country. No, but a sovereign country can take regulatory measures. But how can countries protect themselves? The paper suggests countries ban all further fossil fuel exploration to avoid seeing the problem grow. Yes. And then consider dropping out of a specific commercial treaty that creates the most risk. Both of these actions could cause short-term economic turbulence. Oh no. In Germany, we have a twofold system with basic health insurance as well as private companies. You can make that work. There is a way for a universal healthcare system to be multi-payer. There is a way, that's for sure. I just think that the most efficient one is the single-payer system. That's in my opinion. Complicating matters more is the fact that many countries that are the most at risk from these sorts of lawsuits also have fossil fuel deposits that are cheap to extract. It's not like we found the cheapest oil deposits already and we're only finding more and more expensive ones. We keep finding also big ones that are very cheap to pick up, and that's mostly in the global south at this point. This is why the free market is not the free market is not just it's not equipped to handle climate change at all whatsoever. The UK and in the UK, the NHS Government Health Ministry works together in reducing obesity and diabetes, along with literally refusing only life-saving surgeries for 40 a day. Smokers, which has massively reduced the number of smokers, especially in public buildings, really, unless America is going to adopt a healthy culture. Any attempt at healthcare for all will go bankrupt. I don't agree. I just don't agree. I just think that everybody should have access to healthcare no matter what. I mean, like, if you're a human being, you should have access to healthcare to take care of whatever you have. You can obviously encourage healthy lifestyles and make it so that people can have healthy lifestyles. Part of that is food. But to refuse any kind of like health procedure or whatnot, I just don't agree. I just don't agree. So, yeah, good meme. Good meme. It's basically trying to tell us that it's just too complicated, folks. Maybe we should just keep going. Alright, folks, we gotta talk about this article. Earth given a 50-50 chance of hitting key warming marks by 2026. That is 4 years from now. The world is creeping closer to warming thresholds. International agreements are trying to prevent are closer to the warming threshold. International agreements are trying to prevent with nearly a 50-50 chance that the Earth will temporarily hit that temperature mark within the next 5 years, teams of meteorologists across the globe have predicted. The current debate is to expand that coverage to dental and pharmaceuticals, which I hope will go through. Yeah, that sounds good to me. With human-made climate change continuing, there's a 48% chance that the globe will reach a yearly average of 1.5 degrees Celsius, 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit above pre-industrial levels of the late 1800s, at least once between now and 2026. A bright red signal in climate change negotiations and science. A team of 11 different forecast centers predicted for the World Meteorological Organization late Monday. The odds are inching up along with the thermometer. Last year, the same forecasters put the odds closer to 40%, and a decade ago, it was only 10%. A decade ago, folks, 10 years. 10 years. Everyone has access. For the case of smokers, government raises tobacco taxes and does campaigning in order in schools to stop teens from starting. What stopped me from smoking was HRT, because that combo is downright life-threatening. Gotcha. That's the perfect way of doing it, right? You give access to healthcare to everybody. Everybody gets what their needs, and then of course you promote a healthy lifestyle and all that, and make it so that people can eat healthy. Maybe food, housing, education, healthcare, the 4 pillars, so on and so forth. Put the odds closer at 40%. A decade ago, it was only 10%, folks. That team coordinated by UK's Meteorological Office in their 5-year general outlook said there's a 93% chance that the world will set a record for hottest year by the end of 2026. They also said there's a 93% chance that 5 years from 2022 to 26 will be the hottest on record. Forecasters also project the devastating fire-prone megadrought in the U.S. Southwest will keep going. Yep. Like I said, this is the new norm that we're seeing materialize before us. This is the new norm that we're seeing materialize in front of us. Not in some, ephemeral thing that's happening in generations to come. No, this is happening here and now. And the fact that we have folks arguing about the economics of it is just unbelievable to me, because it will be worse to not solve the problem than to let it keep going. All right, folks. Unfortunately, that is all the time I have today. I need to give a couple of shout-outs and thank you and thank yous. Joltium, thank you for the follow. Fu Manchewy with the 5 gifted tier subs. Thank you so much. Dropping a $5. Industrial Arts, thank you for the follow. The Benjamin P. Dixon Show, thank you for the raid. I appreciate that. That being said, thank you for the follow, Cynthia Citrus. I appreciate that. Folks, check out the Benjamin P. Dixon Show. Check out laboratory, anarchist laboratory. Stony Progressive with the Prime sub. Thank you. Thomas Games with the offline follow. The Snap Aeus with the offline follow. I appreciate that. It's not complicated. It's just the fact that the NHS will give dialysis treatment to alcoholics, but if they keep drinking, they're not added to the kidney or liver transplant list. Really, if the Americans want healthcare, it seems a symbiotic relationship. I switched to paleo diet because my doctor said I needed to lose weight to reduce the risk of cancer and motor neurons disease, which I'm at risk of. Oh, yeah, sure. I'm not disputing the fact that they should be encouraging a healthy lifestyle. I'm just saying that they shouldn't deny service, you know? Yeah, but that's different. Being at the bottom of the list is different, right? If you're not even added, that's kind of messed up. That's kind of messed up. I'm not gonna lie. There's a difference between like, being put at the bottom of the list, or yeah, like that's how it works here, I think. Depending on your healthy like life choices or whatnot. But at least you don't get like kicked off the list, right? Because that seems kind of weird. I wouldn't want that. It might be the same in practice, maybe. I don't know. It just seems kind of weird. Nobody should be denied any type of service whatsoever when it comes to healthcare. I think it should be more of an approach of like make sure that people have a public like campaign, public service announcements, information, education, and also making good, healthy food accessible, so on and so forth. All of these things would help. It just seems kind of. I don't want to say that it just seems. It just seems cruel, you know. Like I understand that some, choice. It was your choice to do X, Y, or Z, but man, I think a better approach would be education and making good, healthy lifestyles accessible and widely available. I think people would choose it. All right, folks, I got to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you for all the support, for all the subs, all the follows. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to hit the follow button on your way out. You get 5 free emotes. Join the Discord to get any updates. Join the YouTubes. Takes 5 seconds. Organ transplant is a limited thing, and people who do things that are damaging really, I don't think, should be in the same queue as a child who has been accidentally poisoned by an ash tree. Well, yeah, that's why you put them at the back of the list, yes. I don't know how it is for alcoholics, but we often have smokers with lung cancer in my workplace, and they move up the list extremely slowly. Yeah, but at least they move up and have the ability. The same thing goes, like we should be promoting programs to get people, to quit smoking or quit alcohol or whatever, and give them the resources and support necessary to have that available, That's my argument. All right, folks. Unfortunately, that is all the time I have today. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for all the support. You guys are what makes this channel grow. Please join us Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Join us on Saturdays about noon Eastern Time. We got something cool cooking up for you guys. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya. Laters. let's continue the chill vibes. All right, folks, we are heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya. Yellow King, thank you so much. Cynthia Citrus, thank you. I appreciate the follow. I appreciate all the support. Catch you later. See ya.